All right, how are we all doing out there? So, I'm going to go ahead and start talking to you all about leadership, and that's what the name of this episode is, Talking Leadership. And we're going to reference some books, and I'm going to give you all some quotes that I feel were very important. Well, I know they were very important to me, and I feel they would be very beneficial to you. So, we start off with the first book, and it's called the title of the book is Project Management for the Unofficial Project Manager. Now, am I a project manager? I am when it comes to baking a cake, building a deck, working on setting up a plan to visit my family or taking a vacation. But that's not my craft. I don't work in an industry that I take on large projects where I manage large amount of people and different moving parts are occurring at the same time and I'm working with a large budget. No, I don't do that. But it doesn't mean that I'm not interested in it. Actually, I'm quite fascinated by project management. And if you are listening to this and you're a project manager, I would love to get some more insight on project management. So when I came across this book, so let me give you some backstory. I came across this book because as I started my journey in leadership, I had different discussions with different people, friends and family who work in the industries that require for them to do those kind of projects where they're working with big budgets and different capacities. And I went off and looked for project management for the unofficial project manager because honestly, I was at Barnes & Noble and I just needed something to get me started. And this was a right book at the right time, and I was at the right place, and it just happened to find me because I know that this book laid out project management in such a simple, easy format for me to follow that I can break down project management. But that's not what we're here for. I'm using this book because leadership is a very, very valuable component to project management. Leadership is very valuable in any aspect when you're working with people because you have to have set traits that are key to making things successful. And like that quote says here, only a fool would try a project like climbing Mount Everest without careful front loading. Before climbing Mount Everest, you'd front load like crazy. You'd research it and talk to the best people you could find. Mount Everest. You don't go climbing Mount Everest like the quote says without knowing anything about it, without preparing to climb up that mountain. So, project management works the same way. Why would you go and embark on a project without knowing nothing about it? So, follow me on this. If you're working with a project that requires a lot of front loading, that's a lot of work. That also requires for the individual who's at the helm of the project to have qualities of a leader that people are going to respond to in a positive fashion. People are going to want to work. People are working or will work to meet those deadlines. And so I move on to the next quote that I marked off here for you all. And it says, be empathetic. Put yourself in their shoes and understand their point of view the best you can. Then sit back and be quiet. If you listen quietly, you'll give the other person a chance to get their emotions out in the open and decompress. You don't have to agree, disagree, or defend yourself, and you might learn something too. Just listening gives you a chance to find out why the person isn't performing. Now, moving into a deeper understanding of leadership. When you're working with these complex projects, you have to be able to have empathy. You have to have that strong emotional intelligence. Practice that because stress is going to be there. Stress is going to be a part of all the work you do. But if the people who you're working with are so stressed that they cannot even function or not able to get past a hurdle, then everyone suffers. The project suffers. The situation suffers. The end result doesn't get met. But if you take the time of investing into the people and understanding and letting them, like it says, decompress, then you're adding more value to the project by doing that. Then the setbacks from stress-related setbacks then become worn. And that is an improvement on the actual outcome that you're wanting to achieve. So, in talking about leadership, be empathetic. Know who you're working with. Understand their situation. Understand and be able to relate to them. This is something that I talked about in a previous episode, that in being able to practice that understanding, that relatable, that authentic person, people will respect that, and people will want to work, and people will want to approach you and say, please understand my situation. I'm willing to work, but right now my situation is XYZ. Can you hear me out? Can I have a couple of days? Can I take a break? Can I have an hour? And through that communication, then you'll understand why. You'll understand how to remedy it and then be more productive. Which then, I pause here for a moment because a great book was handed to me, and I have it next to me. It's called The Speed of Trust. And this is another book that I'm going to be referencing, not today, but later on in a different episode, about relationship building and being able to create that rapport that people value and people want to work for, and people are just willing to go that extra mile. Give me a second here. Let me go ahead and look for the next quote. And this one comes from the same book that I mentioned before, the project manager for the Unofficial project manager. It says, a great process is one key to great project success, but the process is only half of the equation. The other half of the formula, equally important as the first half, is leading people. Now, leading people, what does that look like? Well, that looks like people who are open-minded and always have their ears open when you speak. What I mean by open-minded is they're not closed off to your words. Rather, they want to hear what your ideas are, what your words are, because they value your words. They value your vision. They value your direction. That's what leading looks like. And at the same time, they keep that open ear. They don't get distracted. They make sure they stay focused. They pay attention to the every word that you provide them because they value you and they value your opinion and your word and the work you're doing. So when you lead people, it's people who really just enjoy your quality of a person, your quality of how you treat, the quality of the work they do, and just overall how you treat them. So I'm going to move on to fundamentals of project management. This is a second book that I read on project management. And in this book, watch, let me just read it to you. In this book it says, dictators get people to do things. Leaders get them to want to do things. So, let's think about that. When you are someone who rules supreme, that people fear, people scramble, act like they're working in your presence, not a whole lot of productivity is occurring there. It may seem like great things are happening because people have their heads down or people are writing something down, but people are just complying. People are showing in that fear or that I guess you would call it not wanting to get in trouble mood or mode, that they're working, but in actuality, they're just waiting for you to walk out of the room and go about feeling relieved. And that's not what a quality leader sets the tone as. It says here, as soon as the dictator turns his back, people quit working. I just mentioned that. As soon as the dictator's gone, as soon as that one boss, that one leader who people just either fear or do not respect, while they're in the room, they are working. Once that leader is gone, that person is gone, they just stop working, or they go back to feeling relieved, and just through that sense of relief and that stress relief, then they're not being productive anymore because of the fact that they were so stressed and while you were in the room that it takes them a while to decompress. And it continues here where it says, when the leader turns their back, people continue working because they are willing. So earlier it mentioned dictator, and then it goes on to mention a leader. So it says that the difference between the dictator and the leader is dictator walks away, people stop working. Leader walks away or turns the back, and people continue working, as it should be, because people respect the leadership. Now, I don't have a story to give you all today as far as where leadership occurred or didn't occur, but understand that there are so many stories and so many different situations that can be applied to these quotes. If right now you're in a situation where you are a leader and you are wondering how you can make things better, like the quotes I read, they're not the one-all fix-all, but they're a good starting point. Be empathetic. Start learning how you treat people and how they react, and start learning about them and what makes them driven, what makes them happy, what makes them feel valued, and that will go a long way. At the same time, always have a great plan in place. Don't just set up a plan because you feel like you need to set up a plan. And then lastly, understand who your audience is and understand how they react to you. And if people are stressed around you, that says a lot about what perception they have of you. And like I've heard, perception becomes reality. If people perceive you to be a great person, then you will be a great person. If people perceive you to be an unhappy person, then you could possibly become unhappy. And if you are the employee who's sitting and feel that your leader's a dictator, or feel that the boss is not one that's empathetic with you, rise above. You become that. Now, I'm not saying go take the leader's position or try to become the leader there, but become secure, become confident in your abilities. Take that leadership role in yourself. Feel comfortable in your work. Manage your feelings. Manage your approach to things. Because if you're feeling stressed when people walk into the room, you need to learn to be confident in your work. Be confident in how you handle the situation. Now, of course, it's easier said than done, but this is practice, and practice is through emotional intelligence. Develop that intelligence, which is very key, because one day, in working on it and developing all these different tools, you will become a leader. Now, a leader in your workplace, possibly, but you will become a leader, and you're already a leader at home,